Okay, augmented sixth chords. I struggled with these for a long time, and I don't know why, because when I really think about it, it's not that hard. But like many topics in theory, I had a mental block on this one for a long time. But what I'm going to show you now is the easy way to generate these and to find them. Think of Europe as a map. This little mushroom-looking map is supposed to be Europe. And we have three countries highlighted here: Germany, France, and Italy. All three of these are types of augmented sixth chords that we can find. So let's talk a little bit about what the augmented sixth is. We call these augmented sixth chords, but they're not technically chords. They're a voice leading technique that's used to create something that functions like a predominant chord. These also, the chord after one of these is always going to be the 5 chord in whatever key you're in. And often that will be what tells you what key you're in. When you find one of these chords, it locks you into the key that you have found in a very interesting way. Sometimes that will be how you discover which keys are going to be the important ones in your analysis. We'll talk more about that in Theory 3. But let's talk about what's in each one. The first thing that's in each one is an augmented sixth interval. So an augmented sixth interval is maybe easier to see if you invert it, and the inversion of an augmented sixth is a diminished third. So let's put a third up here on the board. Let me just see the notes. So I have an F and an A, so that is some kind of a third. If we're looking at this in the key of C, the way I find the augmented sixth interval is I go to the 5th note of the scale, or sol, and if we're in the case of C, then sol is going to be the G. So there's sol right there, that G. The two notes that make up the augmented sixth are sol's upper and lower neighbor, chromatic neighbor. So this note, which is A flat, and this note, which is F sharp, are the two notes that make up your augmented sixth interval. We could also call these lay and fi if we're using our solfege syllables. Lay and fi, again, when you look at them on the staff, they look like a third. F sharp to A flat, F to A, F G A is a third. But if you look at it on a keyboard, F sharp to A flat looks like a second. As soon as you discover that relationship in a chord that you don't know what it is, you should immediately start thinking, oh, I'll bet that's an augmented sixth chord. And then the first question you might ask is, what's the note in between them? In this case, F sharp and A flat, the note that's right between them is G. And G is going to be the dominant of the key that you're in. So this is one way to verify which notes you have and whether it's really an augmented sixth chord. Or at first glance, if you look quickly, you might find fully diminished seventh chords that look kind of like these two. The accidentals often will be, we don't have a lot of chords that have a sharp and a flat in them. The diminished seventh chords, I think, might be the only place that we have that, other than these augmented sixth pretend chords. Okay, so we have found the augmented sixth. The augmented sixth is always lay and fi in the key that you're in, which is usually minor for augmented sixth chords, but not always. Half step above sol, half step below sol, and don't use the letter that you named sol. So in this case, we used a G for sol. So when we go half step up, we cannot call it G. We have to call it A something, A flat in this case. And the note below it, we cannot call it G flat because we're not going to use G. We're going to call it the next letter down, which is F. And in this case, F sharp is a half step below sol. So these two notes create your augmented sixth, or your diminished third if you invert it like this. The augmented sixth interval is in every one of these chords every one of these variations of the augmented sixth chord has the augmented sixth in it, has the same augmented sixth in it. So if you have Italian augmented sixth chord in the key of C, or C major or C minor, it will have an F sharp and an A flat. German augmented sixth chord will have an augmented sixth in the key of, if it's in the key of C and you have a German, you will have F sharp and A flat in the chord. And same with the French. If it's in the key of C, it will have those two notes, because those two notes are the augmented sixth. The other thing that is in all of these variations of the augmented sixth chord is Do. Do is always in the chord. So if you're in the key of C, you have C, and then you have F sharp and A flat in all three of these chords. And actually in the Italian chord, you are done. That's all that's in the Italian augmented sixth chord. You have the augmented sixth interval, F sharp and A flat in the key of C. And you have Do, which is C. Easy, the name of the key is C. That's all you have, and if you have that, you're done with your Italian augmented sixth. With the French augmented sixth, you will add Re, whole step up from Do. Just that note added to the chord creates a French one. And if you add Me, which is a minor third for the key, the third in the minor scales, that's Me. Me plus the augmented sixth plus Do will create a German augmented sixth chord, which secretly sounds exactly like a dominant seventh chord, but it's spelled differently. And that's worth exploring a little bit on your own. If you have questions, send me an email. We can talk about that. But this is basically it. In order to find an augmented sixth chord in any key, you need to be able to name a half step above and below the dominant. Then you need to find Do that's in the chord. And if Re or Me is there, that will change you to these other types. And if Re and Me are not there, if you only have the augmented sixth and Do, then you have the Italian augmented sixth. I know I'm repeating a lot of stuff here, but repetition is a key to remembering this stuff. And the last thing to know about it is the next chord after it will always be the 5 chord. If it's not, then you're probably mistaken and you found something else, which will often be a fully diminished 7th chord if you found a sharp and a flat anyway. Okay.